Welcome to the Cincinnati Herald's weekly high school basketball report. I'm Vic Hunter. To my left is Coach Walt White. To my right is Coach Lannis Timmons. We're going to jump right in and cover this. We've got a lot of basketball that happened this week. We're going to cover a little bit of it and bring you up to speed and hopefully get some feedback and some input again next week. To start off, I wanted to just thank the Cincinnati Herald for the support in allowing our weekly basketball show to be a little bit different. And you know, I always ask, how can an omnipresent God be excluded from anywhere? With that being said, we want to begin this week's show with encouragement from the Word of God to the players, to the parents, to the families, coaches, and supporters that are working so hard for these opportunities. In the book of Jeremiah in the Bible, 29th chapter, the 11th verse, it says, "I know the plans I have for you, plans to prosper, not harm you, declares the Lord. Plans to give you hope and a future." Basketball for some of us may result in the ultimate dream of playing for money. For others, it may result in a free education that allows us to support ourselves and our families with well-paying jobs. So with that, we just want you to be encouraged. Keep working hard and trust and believe in God's plan for you. We're going to bounce it to Coach Timmons first for a report on boys high school basketball this week.
Good afternoon. Just want to talk a little bit about St. Xavier High School. I know last week I talked about them not winning the game in the conference for 4 or 5 years. They broke the ice last night as they beat Elder 55-53. I talked to Coach Lannis the other day, and you know, he was feeling good about his chances. And I just wanted to commend him, congratulate him and his team, the coaching staff for doing a great job, and I'm looking forward to the. Wait, want me to hit it again?
Yes, sir.
Okay, also I had opportunity to see Woodward play twice this week. I watched them play Aiken High School. Good game. Aiken jumped out on them, matter of fact, 17-7. And Woodward's leading scorer, Terry Durham, he didn't score a point in the first half. And when I looked at Terry, his body language and everything just seemed like it wasn't as positive as it needed to be. But then during halftime, Coach Redden and the rest of the staff, and even some of his teammates, started talking to him. And he came out in the second half, finished with 20 points, 10 rebounds, and 3 steals. And I was really, really pleased with Terry. Matter of fact, I had a chance to talk to Terry after the game. And just talk to him a little bit so he can understand. This will go for the rest of the players too. That, you know, you got to always understand that you're going to be watched. People are going to be watching you, and they're going to be listening to you. And a lot of times when you put yourself in a situation where it's not a positive situation, that can hurt your chances so far as, like Coach Hunter just said, is getting your education paid for. So this is something we want our kids to be mindful of, that, hey, make sure you go out there and represent yourself in a positive way. And just to piggyback, last night I watched Hughes and Woodward play. And I want to say that was probably one of the best high school games I've seen this year. And Terry, you could just see from the conversation, I'm not just saying from myself, but I know the staff as well too, they were able to reach Terry. And he did a good job last night so far as trying to be a good teammate, a leader. And also, I believe he is the captain. And Terry last night, he finished with 26 points and 11 rebounds and got 2 assists and 2 block shots too. No, I'm sorry, 3 block shots. And I was just really pleased with his effort. But also Hughes, man, like I said, that was a good game. They were down 9 points, 49-40, with about maybe 6 minutes to go in the game, maybe. And they found a way to creep back in. And Coach Wyatt, man, he does just a great job with his guys, not letting them give up. But again, it was just a great game. But I just want to go ahead and turn it back over to Coach Hunter, and you can go from there, Coach.
Coach, let's switch it up a little bit instead of us going back to back with the boys basketball. Coach White, let's give it to you for a report on the girls basketball.
Well, first thing I want to say, girl basketball is exciting. You know, you have to go. We need more support of girls basketball here in the city and in the suburbs and the rural areas. These young ladies work hard to put on a good show and to be in positions of success. So I'd like to say, and I know all the coaches here recognize that we've all coached, we've all had parents talk to us about the kids, whether it's relating to the school, because we're the student athlete crew here. We're not just the athlete crew. And you have to really take some time to sit back and look at how hard they work. Now, if you're just in those stands, then you really don't know how hard they work. Right. It is a 6-day commitment, and sometimes year-round, to play on a high school team or to play on any team. With that said, I want to talk to you about girls basketball starts a week before boys in every state in America, and at the end of the day, they're pretty deep in now. So there's some teams that play 16 games, and after the day there'll be a 17 game, so they'll have 5 more to go because it's a 22 game schedule. And right now, I'm going to just give you the leagues and who's leading. In Cincinnati Hills lead, Marymount is 7-0 in conference, 10-2 in overall. Now, right on their heels is Madeira, who is 6-1 in conference and 11-3. Cincinnati Metro Athletic Conference, Schroeder, 5-0, doing really well, 10-4 overall. Tab, 4-2, 7-6 overall. Right on the hill, Eastern Cincinnati Conference. A little near and dear to my heart because I actually coached at Walnut Hills as a head coach a long, long time ago. But I am a public high school league athlete, and I started off coaching at Aiken High School, which was actually my neighborhood school that I didn't go to. I went to Quarter Tech. But in the Eastern Cincinnati Conference, Walnut Hills is 7-0, 14-1. Loveland is 7-1. 12-1 overall, and West Claremont is 6-1 and 10-5 overall. So those 3 teams are neck and neck, really breathing down in the throat. And all the coaches know, and most people know, the second half of the season roll around, so you got to come back and see those league teams again. So you got to play them. If you beat them, you still got to play them again and beat them again, because when you're that neck and neck, for instance, Walnut Hills lost the league last year at the last game of the season against a Kings team that they had beat earlier, and they ended up losing the league. And also the coach lost Coach of the Year because she won it. The young lady at Kings won that game. She bested them by 1 game. She became Coach of the Year. So you gotta pay attention to this. The girls Greater Cincinnati Catholic League. Mount Notre Dame, 6-0, 15-3. Macaulay, 5-1, 12-3. Ursuline Academy, 3-2, 5-7. So those are the front runners there. The Greater Catholic League co-ed. Now, co-ed is what I coached in at Purcell. There are Catholic schools that have boys and girls, mostly through the mergers when we were kids, of like Purcell and Marion High School. They merged and they ended up becoming a co-ed Catholic high school. Carroll is 5-0, 9-5. On the north side, they call it the North Division. And on the Central Division, Baton is 3-2, 11-3. Greater Miami Greater Miami Conference. I always want to throw Valley in there. Dakota West, perennial powerhouse, 9-0, 14-1. Mason, perennial powerhouse, 8-1, 12-3. Princeton, perennial powerhouse, 6-3, 7-6. So some of these leagues are coming down to the wire with the girls with only 5 games to play. You're going to see some shifting of the terrain here in the upcoming week or so. Some going to go to first, some going to go to second. League championships will be decided in the next 4 games. in most cases. Then you do have independents. We don't want to forget the independents. Gamble Montessori, they're 2-0, 11-2, great record for an independent. Winton Woods, well, let's just say they're 4-11, but this time next year they'll probably flip that script because Winton Woods win. They may have a little down year right now, but in the girls and basketball, boys basketball, football, they win. So
Are
this,
they young?
they're young,
Girls are young.
very, very young. And then you have the Miami Valley Conference. She didn't know you had this many conferences around town, but it's a big region. Southwest Ohio is a big region. We have the Summit Country Day, perennial powerhouse in Division III, 10-0, 14-0 overall. And Norwood, get this will make all of us laugh because back in the day when we were kids, you had to beat Norwood. Norwood wasn't no pushover. Now they've had a little tough times over the past 10, 15 years, but listen to this, they're 10-0 in conference. 10-0, 14-0 overall. In the grade division, Clark Montessori, another school I coached at, 6-2 in conference, 7-5 overall. That right there will demonstrate to you there's a lot of good women's, and I'm going to say women's because they may be girls to some extent, but they're always going to be women and ladies to me because I always address my players as young men because I wanted to start off from the beginning that you growing up and sports going to help you become a man. So why not just talk about what you are? You're going to see some good basketball with the girls here in the next 2 weeks. You behoove yourself to get out and see some of those games. They are not going to be around too much longer because girls will go into tournament a week before boys go into tournament. So we'll keep you updated. We'll have a few players for you at the end of our time here who I've been watching, who you should go out and put your eyeballs on and be proud that these young ladies, not only excellent students, but they're definitely excellent basketball players.
Thank you, Coach. I wanted to touch on two things related to both boys and girls basketball. And that's it's not that we want to have this conversation today, but maybe in the future. The new rule, I guess the recent years rule where you, the coach of the conference of the year, whatever, is based on who wins the conference. You know, and I don't know when that came into effect. I'm not saying it's a bad idea, but I know when I was the head coach and we went to that meeting, and I really didn't know what that rule was. I voted for the guy that I thought did the best job. It's just what it is. Coach Timmons, you know, Coach Walsh, you guys have been there. If you have a subpar team, and you coach these kids, and you see the turnaround, and you will these kids to maybe second in the conference where everybody picked them last, and you see they're overachieving, I'm going to give you my vote. Whereas if I got that stacked team and I win that same conference, it's not that I'm a bad coach, but am I the coach of the year? And so that's just something I want to do. Yeah, that's just something I want to do.
agree with that.
Yeah, I think it should be objective. Like we vote based on what we see because we see each other twice.
Right.
In conference, we go scout each other. So why can't I submit my vote based on who I really think is the coach of the year, based on the body of work, not because you won, and maybe you had the best players and you win. You know, so
I had that very same experience actually in 2005 at Walton Hills. We had a pretty good team there. Steve Ellison, who actually is now the AD of Walton Hills, Ramel Salone, everybody know Ramel. He's the AD at Taft. Seemed like we produced some pretty good kids. And we had 7 players at the end of the season. And we ended up being 3rd in the league. And at that time, Mason was in the league. That was a Fort Ancient Valley Conference. And so when the voting went down in the meeting for the actual coach of the year, they gave it to Mason because they won the league. But every coach walked up to me afterwards and said, well, you know, you should have been coach of the year. I say, well, you know, if that's the way the system is, that's the way the system is. I said, I don't need people to tell me what I've done.
yes.
And that's why we're out here being such big advocates for these kids. Because we need to tell people what they've done. And then hopefully one day they could be in a position to take this on. Because everybody at this table had great coaches. Great coaches, otherwise we would be sitting at this table.
And I think your peers would be fair in the voting process. I'm not going to slight you because you have the best players and you happen to win. I can tell, you know, and it's my opinion. In my opinion, you did a good job, and I'll give you my vote. But again, if someone else did an exceptional job with maybe less than, willed themselves to a higher position than anybody ever anticipated, I might choose to give them my vote, but that's sort of taken away with the rules. So the other thing I want to comment on is I'm a huge fan of girls basketball because it's maybe the purest form of the game because they play below the rim.
Yeah.
And they do the basic stuff. They do pick and rolls and give and goes and backdoor cuts and all the fundamentals of basketball where the boys, some of them are fundamentally sound, but a lot of them, count on the athleticism, the explosion and the speed and things like that. Again, if we can incorporate, and I think we said it in our first show, that whole combination of that speed and athleticism and all of those things with the cerebral part of the game that the girls play with, probably more so than the boys. And I think in the first segment, we made a comparison to the boys, or suggested that the boys play with older men. So they saw how the game was played by experienced veterans and then try to incorporate that in your game. So that's just a little tidbits for you. I'm going to cover, kind of bounce around. Some of the teams, we said this thing was going to shake itself out, and to an extent it is, but the teams that were at the top is sort of held serve. In the Eastern Conference, Walnut Hills, they remain there at the top, and deservedly so. I believe they have a player coming back, if he's not already back, coming eligible. That second part of the Hughes, who we continue to give rave reviews to. Coach Wyatt, just a phenomenal job. Pulled off a big win last night and come back. I saw, well, I went back and forth with Coach Redden a little bit after the game last night, and he was saying how much they were up with just a couple of minutes to go. And that, neither being here nor there what that number was, but it was enough to feel like they should have won the game. And Hughes came back and won in overtime, right, Coach?
Right.
And again, it's a testament to what Coach White is doing with those kids. So they remain at the top in the Cincinnati Metro Athletic Conference tab. Want to give them a little love. They're second. So Coach DeMarco Bradley is doing his thing, as always, with his staff and his kids. And then Woodward's coming in at the third spot. The Woodward just beat Aiken this week, and Aiken's coming in at fourth. You mentioned Schroeder, Coach. They're down there in that fifth spot in the Western Hills. At the bottom there. Deer Park is holding serve in the Cincinnati Hills League. Remain undefeated. 7-0 in conference, 12-0. They beat Reading, who was a formidable challenge in the conference. They beat them this week, maybe by, I don't know if it was 20, close to 20 points. And game before that, I believe they had 102 points. So that press and that stamina, those athletes,
Yes.
they're getting it done. Moeller has yet to lose locally. They've lost out of state, so they're holding serve. So they're one in the GCL. But what's pretty neat, Coach, is you talked about it in one of our first shows. St. X is second.
Coming back.
St. X is second, so we have a return
Right.
of the Bombers, I guess you say. LaSalle is coming in at third, and Elder is fourth. So jumping down, McNicholas is holding serve in that Greater Catholic League, co-ed league in the Central Division, but they're also number one in the city in Division 2. So they're doing really, really well. They're still undefeated as well.
They're ranked in the state.
Yeah, they're doing really, really well. And then to jump down to the GMC, Independence, Gamble, Montessori, they're up there at 5-0 and 6-7 overall. But they're playing some pretty decent teams out of conference. In the Miami Valley Conference, they have a scarlet and a red, a scarlet and a gray division. In the scarlet division, Summit Country Day, undefeated in conference at 7-0, 9-1, perennial power. And North College Shield deserves some mention. Shannon Minor's doing a phenomenal job. They're 6-2 in conference and 11-2 out of conference. I think those are the two teams we want to talk about most in that conference, because they'll have a chance to make a little noise in the state. And then to jump up to the GMC, Princeton had an interesting week. They lost to, I think it's Pickerington North. I want to say it was 12 points. Coach White attended that game, and then they played New Albany, which is a team sort of like Cincinnati and Covington, right across the bridge from Louisville is New Albany. They have the number 5 kid in the country. When I saw him play, his name is Romeo Langford. I said, man, I need to see 1 through 4, because it's hard to believe it's 4 better than him. But he's the number 1 shooting guard. So the other kids, maybe, I know it's 2 bigger kids. Zion Williamson is supposed to sign today, so he's a national phenom. I don't know. They haven't made the commitment yet, but I think he's going to have a signing thing today on ESPN. But this kid, Romeo Langford, 6'5", just, you'll see this kid in the league. If he barring injury, he'll play for money. He had 35, I believe it was, in an overtime game, and a victory for them by 1 point. But here's what I want to say about Princeton. Darius Baisley played the best basketball I've seen him play in the 2 years that I've seen him play. They really were battling as McDonald's All-Americans. You had 2 top 10 McDonald's All-Americans in this game, Romeo Langford and Darius Baisley. Baisley fouled out at the absolute beginning of the overtime segment. So here's what's pretty neat, guys. Our first week, we covered our recruitable student athlete of the week, Darwishi Hunter.
He stepped up.
Stepped up big time. Now here's where it gets really neat, because you have Paul Biancardi, assistant at Ohio State, head coach at Wright State. Now he's over all the ESPN high school basketball stuff, so he's a big to-do. Well, he's commentating the game. They're sitting in the bleachers with the kids. Darwishi ended up, I think he led him at halftime when scoring, but when Baisley fouled out, now Darwishi had already had a great pace too. He had 19 or 20. He ended up leading Princeton in scoring in this game, and ended up with about 25 points. So I feel really good about that, because we featured Darwishi our first week, Darwishi Hunter, and we featured Damani McIntyre from Deer Park in our second.
When they actually played Centerville, Darwishi had 20 points at the third quarter.
Yeah.
And Baisley, he was combating a 6'9" swing man that could play. So his focus was D'ing him up. But Darwishi hit the three. Now, they didn't score a lot of points that game. I talked to Coach Timmons after that game. I called him on the way back to Cincinnati. I think Princeton scored 38. But this Hunter kid had about 22 of those 38.
I think he led him against Pickerington North in scoring too. Now, and here's what I want to say, guys. Paul Biancardi, I said what I said about him, because he is a big to-do in high school basketball. If your name is in his mouth, it's going to get out there. As Darwishi continued to play fairly well in the game and in the overtime, Paul Biancardi said, and I can't quote him exactly, but I will quote the word he used. He said he stamped him as a Division I college recruit, and then he encouraged the MAC schools and others to get on this kid. So I think we're on point with what we're doing and featuring our recruits.
I think UC needs to get on.
Absolutely.
He is a scorer.
Yeah, he's worth
score that he put Princeton on his back last week when they got off to a slow start.
Right.
And he made them viable in that game.
You know, the thing that really stand out for me with this is to see a Cincinnati team on national television. That was the thing that really made me feel good, and see these kids that we know, that we have, have relationships with, and actually see them playing, like I said, on national TV. And again, that goes back to what I was saying before. You never know who's watching you, and you never know who's listening to you. But I want to say this too about Walnut Hills. I think Coach Ricardo Hill is not getting his name.
Fantastic.
His name is not being mentioned enough out there. I think Coach Hill's doing a great job with his kids. They're 8-0 in the lead, and 12-2 overall. And I'm gonna get out and watch them play Withrow. They got Withrow coming up.
Those two games were actually the two losses were in Florida. They lost.
Oh, the one Walnut Hills lost?
Yeah.
Okay.
The girls team, the boys team went to Florida for tournaments over the holiday.
Right.
The girls lost one, which was against the number 8 team, Hoover, Alabama.
Okay.
The number 8 girls team in America. And then Ricardo's team had 2 tough games in Florida. It wasn't like they were getting beat.
Oh, yeah.
They were
Right.
2 tough games. So,
Right.
And as far as the league is concerned, I wouldn't say it was a down year. I would say it's probably one of the better years for the Eastern Cincinnati Conference since they created. So they're playing some strong competition.
And, Ricardo takes pride in the cerebral aspect of the game. He wants his kids to play smart. Now, certainly you would expect that from Walnut Hills. Well, most coaches expect it, but you don't always get it. He really gets the kids to play an intelligent brand of basketball, and you can appreciate that. You can win those close games when you understand how to
win those close games.
how to play
Like
basketball.
action.
Yeah, and when we were talking against a few segments ago about these kids and Darwishi and Princeton and Baisley and this kid Langford, are the only two of maybe three kids on the McDonald's All-American team that come from public high schools.
Wow.
So that's pretty impressive
It is,
as
yeah.
well. So you're looking at the 9th rated player and I think the 5th rated player, but the significance, they were two of only, I think 3 players are the only 2 that came from public schools.
Right.
So that's pretty impressive
You're right,
stuff.
because they normally come from
Yeah,
private schools.
yeah,
Well,
prep
they
schools,
recruit.
yeah.
They recruit, right.
Yeah, the
right,
prep
they
schools
recruit.
get a lot in there.
And the thing with the prep school is, I think we have to take a real hard look at how those kids are treated, and be honest about it. We played Huntington Prep, 3 years ago when I was at Purcell, and so first of all, the gym to me was like 1940. They had these super athletes all lined up playing in a small gym, which I never thought is conducive because injuries happens in those smaller gyms in high school. And the second thing is there's a backbench, and Coach Timmons knows, Coach Vic knows there's a backbench. And what is a backbench? Well, a backbench is they swoop up all the players, they bring them to their schools, their academies, and half the players never play. And they call them the B team.
Yeah.
And the B team never play.
Coach, may I jump in right there? That's what caused Damani McIntyre to be here at the very, very fortunate Deer Park team. He's one of the best players on that team, but he was on the Oak Hill Academy B team last year.
Which
So
means-
to your
yeah.
point.
So they, these kids need a future. They don't need to be on somebody's back bench when they got talent and academic opportunities. Because, we have to stay focused on that. When we were kids, academic All-Americans were aplenty. Now you hear about them once in a while.
Yeah,
And
it's
that's
special.
because they're not working both angles for these kids. They're just working one angle. And as we all know in our 20s, so we're all 20-something,
Late 20s.
one angle is not going to work for young folks. They need as many angles as they can to succeed.
We gotta continue to drive home the importance of character.
Yeah.
Grades. Because again, as a recruiter, and I've coached on the college level as well, when you go see a player, you're drawn to his talent. But then you've got to vet his character and his grades in order to see if he's a viable recruit for you. And then you've got to certainly vet his grades to see if he's going to be able to maintain with the college level. The freedoms that you get on the college level, the temptations that exist on the college level. Are you going to be able to maintain the grades? So we do need a lot more emphasis on training kids up in those areas. I mean, I'm not knocking AAU, but we do go from the season to a small break to a ton of AAU. And again, if I can speak my 2 seconds of soapbox input here, if you're playing AAU or whatever and you have a weak left hand or you can't shoot, that's not the time to work on it. And I'm playing against the best players in the country.
Right.
I'm not going to take a superb defender guarding me and I can't dribble with my left hand, and I'm going to practice that with you guarding me.
Right.
Neck and neck game, I'm down a bucket, I'm not going to practice my jump shot. And so where do you get better? In the areas that you're really weak on. So you go through all of this year-round stuff. If you don't work on your left hand on your own, if you don't work on your jump shot on your own, when your season rolls around again, you're going to still have a deficient left hand and a deficient jump shot.
You better find time, and I used to always tell kids, if you're not shooting 500, 600, 700 shots a day, spending 45 minutes to an hour on your ball handling, you kind of, defeating yourself, really.
Coach, I was fortunate to go to camp with Huggins and work. Billy Hahn is assistant coach. He's an Indiana guy, went to Maryland. He had this drill called the ladder drill. And as much as we've been around basketball, you learn stuff. You're always evolving. And the drill is based on making shots, not taking shots. You had to do X amount of ladders after every practice, and the way they had it structured, it's like 3 shots around each cone, but you can get creative with it, but then you do the same thing on the other side. So that's 3 shots, you got to make 9 shots to get out 1 ladder, but he had them do 9 or 10 ladders. So you have to make, if it's 10 ladders, you have to make 90 shots.
Right.
And so however many you take is how many you take. You don't get out of the drill and leave practice until you made 90 shots, 10 laps, and
Right.
9 shots a lap, and then you do it on the other side.
Right.
You get used to seeing that ball go in the hole.
Oh, yeah.
You know, practicing making shots. It's, a lot of us grew up and we took 500 or 300 or
We
whatever.
shot all day.
Yeah, I never kept count of
Just shot.
just
How many you
make.
made?
I kept count of how many I made, but I didn't go out with the goal of making shots just exclusively like this drill designed to do. I went out to take 500 shots. Now I planned to make most of them because nobody was guarding.
Right.
Right.
Right, but this drill says you got to make the shot to get out of it, and I like that idea. Yeah, I like that idea.
You know what? When I used to work out, the little bit that I did, because I didn't really understand the individual part of it. All I really understood was just getting up and down playing. But let me go back, and this is going to relate to this. I'm on the school board now. We had a student achievement committee meeting yesterday, and we talked about kids developing habits and preparation. And that's the same thing that ties into this too. If you don't have certain work habits, you're not going. You can't just have the coach or your parents say, "Hey Vic, hey Walt, Lannis, you better get out there and do this." This got to be coming from yourself. You got to be self-motivated.
Yes, sir.
And then the preparation. Okay, what time are you gonna do it? Okay, and that's what we talked about in the meeting the other day. But just making sure that you understand, preparation and commitment also. And then we talked about people skills and being able to network. Being able to say, yes, sir, no, sir, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. Hold up, watch this. Thank you, and you're welcome. Being able to do
Please.
the little things, the please. And like I tell kids, it's going to be some doors you're going to keep yourself out of just because you don't have that. And what do I mean, getting into certain doors? By being able to get in the door that you're trying to get into, so far as being enter a gym. If you got a bad attitude or just not doing what you're supposed to do, people are not going to welcome you into that facility that you're trying to get into.
And I just want to piggyback on that one last thing, and I know we're coming close to the end of our
Yes.
segment here, but I want to say this because this is real life. In 1972, I was 72, I was a senior to be at Cincinnati Technical High School. And they made us wear ties. Now, most of us didn't have ties. My daddy worked at General Motors, he worked in the plant. But I had a little something I could use, one of them pop-on ties. And I never forget, this is part of the stereotypical narrative in those days, and every one of these young men can speak to that. We went into a Catholic high school. I won't mention the name, because I'm not trying to cast aspersions on the school or the people. But we were well-dressed, we were well-mannered, we were black, and you could hear the people say, look at them, they're so polite, they're so well-mannered. Now, I didn't get excited about that.
Right.
I just thought it was pretty amazing that perception is everything in this world. And to end that by saying we beat that team up and down the court, they would beat us by 24 points. And we walked out the same way we walked in. Well-dressed, well-mannered, super respectful, no slapping, giving fives. We say, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. People will come to you and say, great game, guy. We say, yes, sir, thank you, sir. Really appreciate you saying that. That's the biggest step to probably 80% of our team getting ahead in life.
And it's a discipline.
Carries over.
It's a discipline too, because you speak about it all the time.
Yeah.
And it would be great if a lot more of our teams would walk in and leave.
We're still good.
Okay, and we're going to shut it down this week. We want to thank you for visiting with us here at the Cincinnati Herald's Weekly High School Basketball Report. On behalf of Coach Walter White, Coach Lannis Timmons, I'm Victor Hunter. We're going to sign off, but as you visit the site, you look at this broadcast, we'll have our contact information on there. So you can reach out to us and we can correspond with you there. We'll have, from emails to phone numbers to Facebook connections, Twitter accounts, whatever it is, we'll have all kinds of ways of you getting with us. We want your feedback. We want to help your kids out. We want to come and visit your school. We're going to probably go live at a couple of games, so maybe you'll be the first. But respond to us so we'll figure it out and continue to bring you good information. Again, remember that scripture in the book of Jeremiah 29:11. Some of you are working so hard. The Lord says, I know the plans I have for you, plans to prosper you and not harm you, to give you hope and a future. See, we got to stay the course and trust his plan. It doesn't always work out like we think it's going to work out, but he's in control and it's going to be just fine. I shared that with the father of Darwishi Hunter prior to the game, and it was so amazing how he came back to me and thanking me for that particular quote of scripture. So I wanted to share to the entire listening audience here with our Cincinnati Herald's weekly basketball report. So again, we thank you for joining us. We hope you'll join us weekly. We hope to continue to do our homework and bring you good information on Cincinnati and Tri-State